Rapper Fetty Wap pled guilty to conspiracy to possess and distribute 500 grams or more of cocaine. Let's get into the details. My name is Jamahl Kersey. I am the principal attorney at Kersey Law, a boutique criminal defense firm in San Diego, California. And in this video, we're talking about Fetty Wap's recent legal woes. So Fetty Wap, real name Willie Junior Maxwell, pled guilty to a federal charge of conspiracy to possess and distribute 500 grams or more of cocaine. And so Fetty and 5 other guys were accused of transporting, distributing, and selling more than 100 kilos of cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, and crack across state lines between June 2019 and June 2020. And that's big weight. You know, if it sounds like big weight, 100 keys, yes, that's definitely a lot of drugs. And so with these amounts and crossing state lines, that's definitely going to catch the attention of the feds. And so generally speaking, you know, your drug possession, transportation, distribution, basically any type of trafficking, sales, they're going to be state cases. So these are going to be prosecuted by local authorities. But when you're dealing with these type of larger amounts and moving between state lines, then that's going to be federal. And so the mess up thing about these federal cases are the mandatory minimums. So in the state courts, you just have so much more flexibility in terms of your negotiations with the DAs and also even sentencing with the judge. But on the federal side, you're dealing with the federal sentencing guidelines, which can be very, strict. And then on top of that, you have these mandatory minimums, and those can just be a killer. And so in this particular case, there was a mandatory minimum of 5 years in prison. Not only that, but Fetty Wap was facing a maximum of 40 years. And so Fetty Wap is 31 years old. And so if you have a 40-year prison sentence, even if you're doing the 85%, that's putting him well into his 60s by the time he would get out. And so that, when you're looking at that much time, that's definitely going to factor into, any possibility of deciding to continue to fight your case or take it to trial. On top of that, when you are dealing with federal prosecutors, oftentimes they'll give you a letter. The letter will be the initial offer, and then it's kind of like a take it or leave it. And if you continue to fight it, a lot of times they'll pull that deal off the table, and then boom, now you're in a position where you pretty much have to end up going to trial. And then now you're looking at, hey, he was looking at those 40 years. And it really puts you, between a rock and a hard place when you're dealing with these federal cases. So, I just imagine, just based on his decision to ultimately take the deal, that the evidence was probably looking pretty strong against him, or at least strong enough that his chance at trial weren't looking good. And so rather than to gamble with the 40 years, he just decided to, take the L and plead guilty. And so Fetty Wap was arrested by federal agents at Rolling Loud in New York last October. He was released on $500,000 bond. And so a word of caution, when you're out on bond, you just definitely want to be on your best behavior, because you don't want to get taken right back into custody. But unfortunately, just a couple weeks ago, that's just what happened to Fetty Wap. He ended up getting arrested a second time, and this time in his home state of New Jersey, and his bond was revoked as a result. And so when the police, when they seek an arrest warrant, they're going to draft what's called a warrant affidavit. And so that affidavit is going to list the probable cause for the arrest. And so apparently Fetty Wap was on a FaceTime call in December of last year. And so the guy he was talking to, he allegedly threatened to kill this guy and called him a rat. And Fetty Wap allegedly had a gun on him, and he was pointing the gun at the screen, basically said, "I'm gonna kill you and everybody you're with," and repeated it again. So another piece of advice, listen, if you're threatening to kill somebody, or, threatening to cause somebody bodily harm, and it's clear that you mean for it to be a threat, and the person receiving the threat is in fear for their safety as a result, if that's the case, then that is a felony. And so a lot of people aren't aware that this is a crime. Over the years, I've had people get popped for criminal threats, and they're like, "Hey, but I never even touched the guy. I never laid a finger on him." And what they don't understand is, you don't have to. Just the mere threat is all it takes. So in California, the state I practice in, a felony criminal threat conviction is considered a strike, which is a huge deal, because if you have a strike and then you get popped on a new case, then they're going to double the sentence on that new case. So again, if you're out on bail, you want to act like a saint, a choir boy, an angel, whatever, just don't mess up. It's not a good thing to get popped for a new offense when you're out on bail. Because if your lawyer is working out a good deal for you, then you getting arrested on a new offense while out on bail can really mess up that deal. And even if you already took a deal, let's just say you already signed a plea agreement, your lawyer was able to negotiate a really solid deal. You might have been looking at a few years in prison, and under the deal, you were only sentenced or only going to be sentenced to probation. Getting arrested on a new charge can ultimately result in that deal being pulled off the table. And just as it pertains to Fetty Wap, it's unfortunate when you see a guy who, really was able to get the golden ticket out of the hood, the fame, the fortune, and just to land in a situation like this. I mean, Fetty had to have been pulling down at least 6 figures for his shows at the height. And, you'd want to see a guy like that go into legitimate business, be able to leverage his fame and the money he's made in order to make money in ways that, just are not going to land you in prison. And so one thing to note is that Fetty's attorney was very adamant to say that, hey, Fetty Wap is not cooperating with the authorities. This is just a standard plea. And so naturally people in this situation are going to jump to the conclusion like, dang, if he was facing 40 years and now he might only do 5, like who was he snitching on? But nah, this is not the case. Fetty Wap did not have to give up anybody in order to get his deal. That was just something that was ultimately negotiated. And so a sentencing date has not yet been announced, but Fetty Wap will remain in custody pending sentencing since his bond was revoked. And so that's enough for now. If you got something out of this video, please show me some love. Hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and make sure you turn on notifications so you never miss a new video when it drops. As always, I want to thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.